So recently for an upcoming video of mine, I've had to record a lot of Scout footage, and well, I've been having a great time. Scout is so much fun. And this newfound interest in Scout led me to the question as to why Scout is so popular amongst good TF2 players. Whether you're a pub crawler like me, a filthy competitive player, or just a casual community server browser, you've probably seen your fair share of quite good and, well, frankly, quite rude Scouts. And through my simple research, I found some pretty good answers as to why all of these things are the way that they are. So take this casual and very laid back video as an explanation as to why Scout is such a popular class in TF2 amongst the good, the bad, and the ugly players. And although I'll be covering a multitude of reasons as to why anyone would play Scout, I am specifically focusing on the good players. I refuse to call them pro players because, well, anyone who plays TF2 for a living is kind of a loser. Oh wait, never mind. This is a very casual and laid back video, and if you enjoy this kind of content, please subscribe and let me know if you'd like to see more. Or likewise, if you don't enjoy this style of video, please subscribe and let me know as to why. But anyway, that's enough yapping, so we might as well get started. So I don't think it's an unfair thing to suggest that Scout might just be the most popular character amongst experienced players, except for of course, you know, the support classes and Soldier. And after analysing the players who play these classes and the movesets available to them, I think I've come up with 3 main reasons as to why Scout is so popular amongst experienced players. There will always be personal preference and other sorts of reasons that are involved, however I generally find these 3 big reasons are just the most categoric ones I could possibly find. So I think we'll start with reason 1 and we'll just go from there. So the first reason, independence. So you see, Scout is a very independent focused class. He doesn't necessarily work well with a team, he works best when he's behind the enemy flanks picking off classes one by one. And this kind of leads me as to the way the classes are categorised today. So the outdated system of attack, defense, support doesn't really line up with the modern day kits of the mercs. The best way, in my opinion, to categorise them these days is by pick, power and support classes. Wow, that took hours to make. Anyway, so this general layout of class recognition should look pretty familiar to you. And well, if we turn our attention over to the pick classes, we can start to see some pretty obvious patterns forming. All these classes are very independent, very high skill ceiling classes. Large numbers of these classes actively hinder the team quite a bit, as pick classes don't necessarily have, well, the power to carry games by themselves, yet 1 or 2 good players on each of these classes can do wonders for your team. Sniper's whole design incentivizes high risk, high reward. With a little bit of charging, you can drop any of the classes in the entire game, but this is of course limited to such a tiny little head hitbox. Spy's design is a lot like this as well, except he's only most powerful when the enemy is facing away from him. As a spy, you should work with your team in order to distract the enemy so you can get your key picks. And yet again, Scout's design is a lot like this as well. Scout can either take objectives while the enemy is trying to firefight somewhere else, or whilst the enemy is trying to firefight the objective, he can manage the flanks and get key picks too. Now, Soldier is actually a little bit different as he's kind of a hybrid between a pick and a power class, depending on how you play him. His splash damage is of course king, however, depending on whether you want to pair him with the gunboats, or a banner, or just generally want to stick with your team or not, he can either be an incredibly strong dependent roamer, often played by knobheads, or an incredibly strong dependent member of your team. You should play the latter. All this talking about pick classes brings me to the point that these are very independent focused classes. They specifically measure your skill level amongst yourself and not amongst your team. And I feel Scout exemplifies the best of this amongst all of the pick classes. Scout's glass cannon design and the huge amounts of damage some TF2 weapons can deal out means that if Scout gets hit at least once, he's often going to take at least half of his health, and it's never a good thing to have when you're such a low health class. Yet because of his incredibly high damage output and speed, he can not only deal enough damage to keep up with the big boys of TF2, but also get to health packs in that so he doesn't have to rely on any of the support classes for healing. So, category 1 as to why I think Scout is so popular amongst good players, independence. He's a very independent focused class and he has all the tools he needs to succeed in a fight. So the second part of this video actually links very nicely into the first part as to what I've just been talking about, as the second reason as to why I think Scout is so popular amongst good players is his incredibly high skill ceiling. You see, within doing research for this video, I came fresh off the bat of a Discord call with some of my closest friends, after which we discussed the various skill ceilings and flaws of certain classes, and we all agreed that Scout probably had the highest, in ties with Spy and maybe Medic. But you know what? Deciding which class had the highest skill ceiling, which had the lowest skill floor, was actually quite a difficult decision we had amongst each other, and I'll probably be making a video on that in the future. But this conversation as a whole I had with my friends reminded me of a quote from the great Peterscraps, the only other British TF2 YouTuber ever. And well, I think I'll just play it for you.
TF2 is hard to learn, easy to play, and insanely difficult to master. Not just being able to play the class, but all the roles, strategies and skills the class has to offer. So you can play stock Soldier well, What about using the direct hit effectively? Or being able to rocket jump and the many different ways of doing it? Can you use a market gardener to effectively drop a medic? Can you play a role as roamer or pocket? Can you strafe, flick, track, C-tap? All these things and more make up a good soldier player.
Couldn't have put those words better myself. This game is obtusely difficult, and it is incredibly rewarding as well, as actively the better you get with a character, the better you'll be playing, and therefore the better you could transition to maybe other different playstyles and weapons. Yet as time goes on with anything, be it TF2 or any other game or real life project, you tend to look for more of a challenge, and well, the higher skill ceiling classes tend to be more mentally rewarding at that point. After a certain point, there's only so much fun that can be had by holding W and M1 at the same time, but when you start to incorporate not only your knowledge of the class you're playing, but your knowledge of the class the enemy is playing into your gameplay, you tend to have a lot more fun. And this is quite often the reason as to why you'll find just generally a lot of rude people pick Scout in particular. This of course doesn't apply to every Scout out there, but just the majority of them. TF2 is an insanely difficult game to master, and because Scout's skill ceiling is so high and because he's such a skill dependent class, this often attracts players who think they're better than everybody else. The lime green Scout with a 5-letter name that we're all familiar with, but I'm not going to say because I don't swear, is a very common sight within TF2. But it's important to remember not to take it personally. It's just a game at the end of the day, and everyone's playing to just try and have fun. Although, unfortunately, some people have a different idea about what fun is than others. Anyway, point being, because Scout is such a high skill ceiling dependent class, this often attracts players to try and learn this curve and often get better than everyone else. And well, that's a very healthy thing. It might not sound like it on paper, but it really is. But maybe the majority of Scout mains as a whole could do with just telling us a little bit less how much better at the game they are than we are. Anyway, sorry, we kind of got off tangent with the last bit there. I just wanted to sneak that into the video somewhere as we are talking about Scouts and skill ceilings and, well, the inevitable is inevitable. But the basic point is, high skill ceiling characters attract high skill ceiling dependent players. Now the final point I want to make in this video as to why I think Scout is so popular amongst good players is because of his movement. Movement is fun. Gaming experiences as a whole are made much richer by being able to use your movement to traverse the terrain within any scenarios. And considering how Scout naturally comes built in with not only the fastest ground running speed in the game, but also a double jump means he's a natural pick for movement junkies. Movement is just hard to beat, it's just a core fundamental part of every single game. And when it comes to a game, for example, like TF2, you get much more out of the gameplay experience being able to traverse the entire map, like say with Scout, than you would out of just playing a ground-based class, like say with Heavy. So that's my third reason as to why I think Scout is so popular amongst good players. Movement is just so addictive and so fun, it's incredibly hard to switch to another class that barely has any. To all the movement junkies out there, comment down below your favourite character and your favourite game to move around with. I'd be very interested in reading them, and I'd like to see if Scout comes anywhere close to the top of your list. And there you have it, my friends. Those are my 3 main reasons as to why I think Scout is such a popular class for experienced players to pick up. He has an incredibly independent moveset which allows his incredibly high skill ceiling to shine, and all of this is backed up by the fact that movement is just incredibly fun and it allows him to pick his fights. I know not everyone is going to agree with me on these reasons. Hell, I assume most people aren't going to, because I don't think I've ever seen a Scout video on YouTube of which everyone has just not beaten each other up in the comments before. But if you want to let me know why you think I'm wrong, or if you think there's anything I've missed, just let me know down below, but let's be civil, lads. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, everyone. The next video will probably be ranking subclasses by either pick, power, or sport, so let me know down in the comments below which ones you think belong into what categories. I also just want to say humongous thank you for 7k subscribers. We've only been on the platform since July 25th, and this is an absurd amount of a following to gather in that time. Thank you so much, everyone. And, well, just thank you. Anyway, with that being said, a further thank you to everyone for watching, and I will see you later down the sunny road.